Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Winning with Leverage with MAPS coach, Jen Davis. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and you'll automatically receive the webinar an hour after the recording of the webinar an hour after the end of the call. If you have any questions for your coach, please type them in the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That is FASTTRACK@kw.com. That's all for me. Jen, take it away.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm super excited to get to chat with you today. My name is Jen Davis. I am located in Springfield, Missouri. I am the current CEO for Holt Homes Group. However, I spent my first 6 years on the team being our lead buyer specialist. So this program focuses a lot on being a buyer's agent and how you build a team within a team. That's the whole premise of this program. So what we're trying to do here is create a mindset around what it would look like to either be given the opportunity to create a team within a team, or if you're a mega agent, what would that look like for you to create a world big enough for someone in your organization to build a team within a team. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to level this out. So there's basically 5 levels or 5 weeks that we're going to go through in this program, and we are going to make a focused effort on what your path to mastery would be as a buyer's agent while building out your team. So the 5 layers or the 5 levels that I'll be talking about are: number 1, the path to mastery as a buyer's agent. So how do you get to a point where you have done all you can do as a buyer's agent? And then what do we leverage next so that you can build out this bigger, better team? So first level is this path to mastery as a buyer's agent. The second one is really learning to leverage, and we're going to talk about all kinds of scripts and ideas around how do you leverage with the admin that your team already has, and how do you get into a position where you start bringing admin into your world. So think of it of very similar to the MREA model for the listing side. All we're really doing is replicating that on the buy side. So what we're trying to do is look at the buyer's agent role as a very strong role in the team. It's not a less than role. So it's not less than the rainmaker. It's not less than a listing agent. You still have every opportunity really that any type of other agent would have, and you can create a very big world for yourself. Level 3 is really going to get into learning to leverage with lead generation. So constantly reevaluating what your top priorities are and how we move the organization further faster. So when we start to talk about leveraging with lead generation, what we're really doing is setting up your pipeline so that you can eventually add showing agents. Showing agents is our 4th level of leverage, and it's really leveraging that relationship with the client. However, each of the other levels have to happen first, so you're set up in a way to take great care of your clients and then the people that you bring into your team. And then the 5th week, we're going to really focus in on not only how do we get talent and how do we find talent, but how do we keep it? How do we make sure that these roles that we're bringing in and the time that we're investing on our training isn't wasted and there's not a lot of turnover? So we're going to dive in today. We're going to talk a lot about little bits and pieces of all of these 5 layers. And we're going to set ourselves up for a really great program that's going to start mid-September. So program details, our launch is actually September 11th. That's a Wednesday, and we will be having this program will repeat every Wednesday for 5 weeks, starting at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. The price is $149. The link is right here, and I know that those of you that are listening in will get a copy of this recording, and it will also give you the instructions on how to sign up for the class. So let's dive right in. So a little bit about me. I don't know clearly who's on the call and how many of you that I know. My name is Jen Davis. I am the CEO of Holt Homes Group in Springfield, Missouri. We are a team of 18 people. 6 of us are in production, and last year we closed 464 units. So on average, each of our agents sell 90 homes per year. And so what we're going to do in this program is kind of take the thinking process that we had for our team and try to show you what it can look like if you have very specialized roles, and if you can leverage in a way that's a systematic and trainable, and that you can duplicate it, and that the numbers never really dwindle as you're training people. So many of you on the call have probably trained people at some time, and there's maybe been a dip in production while that's happening. And what we're here to talk about is really how do we do this in a very clear, concise way that helps you get from point A to point B and never have a step back in production. So I've been on our team since 2013. I was the lead buyer specialist from 2013 through the end of 2018. My first year in the business as a buyer's agent, I sold 49 homes. When we get to week 1 of this program, we're going to talk about how did I do that? What kind of leverage did I have then? What leverage should I have had then? And scripts that made my job easier. Year 2, in 2014, we added some team leverage with some additional admin support, and my numbers jumped up to 72 closed units on the buy side. No showing agents. It was just me and some amazing admin staff. 2015, we learned to leverage with lead generation, and we're going to talk about in level 3 what that sounds like. What type of personality are we trying to hire for lead gen? What is their role? How do they complement production? How do you make that a very good, solid relationship so that your lead generation team also doesn't feel like it's a less than role? So we're going to focus in on those types of hires, what that training looks like, where the scripts come from, and how you can build out this massive pipeline. So we talk about this part of it because if you're going to bring in showing agents, which I think is kind of the hot topic that everyone wants to talk about, if you're going to bring in a showing agent and you want them to have massive success, then you've got to set them up with a massive pipeline. And so we're going to talk between weeks 3 and 4 a lot about what that pipeline looks like. How do we set it up? How do we make sure that when we bring people into our world, that we've got a business plan that's a true business plan, and that we're functioning as business owners instead of real estate agents. In 2016, when I added those 2 showing agents, my production jumped up. So with the addition of lead generation, I was at 110 closed units with no showing agents. I did have a MAPS coach that year that really helped me button down those systems so that in 2016, I was ready to hire some showing agents. I added my first one in January of 2016 and then was ready for my second one of June of that same year. Myself and those 2 showing agents were able to close 182 units, and it was super exciting because what we were able to do is we were able to provide growth for our lead generation team and our administrative support team. So by us coming in and dialing in what our roles were and what the specialized part of that role was, we were able to give massive opportunity to other people on our team. Then you can see the numbers jumped up with the same 3 of us, myself and 2 showing agents. We closed 223 in 2017 and then 220 last year. At this point, I'm fully out of the buy side as far as production numbers go, and replaced myself with my first showing agent, and they'll close somewhere around 250 to 275 units this year. So that's a little bit about me. We will break down year by year kind of thought process, what leverage there was, mistakes I made, wins that we had, and kind of go through that line by line once we get into the program. So if we talk about when we're trying to build up this world as a major buyer's agent and building a major buyer business and a team within a team, we have to look at in these levels, first of all, your path to mastery as a buyer's agent. You have to master your role and understand your role as part of the business before you can start bringing people in to build out your team. So the top activities, clearly number one is lead generation. So when we look at lead generation on the level of being a buyer's agent, this is before you've leveraged off that part of the business, you have to look at, okay, where am I going to get leads? How am I going to convert them? And understanding what your numbers are as a business person. So it's not any different than on the listing side. You have to know how many calls you need to make in order to make how X number of contacts to get X number of appointments, and then what your conversion rate is so that we can understand how to structure a business plan with your end goal in mind. That's the foundation of your business. Lead generation is going to be the foundation of your business. It's no different on the buy side than it is on the listing side. Lead follow-up is number 2 on this list. And I know that you guys have heard people say fortune is in the follow-up. I will tell you that the reason that we are so successful on the buy side is because of our follow-up systems and the plans that we put in place after somebody hits our database. Whether they're a met or a not met, we are very systematic in our approach to the follow-up. When we get into week 3 of the program, we'll go through a lot of what those scripts sound like, how we line it out to make sure that these people are getting followed up with appropriately in a timely response. We do different types of follow-up, whether it's email, text, phone call, various different activities to make sure that we can stay in front of them. Doesn't matter to me if a lead that we generate is ready to buy in 30 days, 90 days, or a year from now. That's still someone that I want to get in front of and still someone I want to add to our pipeline reports. Buyer consults. This is what's going to set the tone for your relationship with the client. This is where you're going to set your expectations and you're going to make sure that you can follow through on the promise you deliver to your clients. This number 1 was the most important thing that my MAPS coach taught me how to do well. And it's how I was able to go from showing 5 to 6 homes per buyer to 2 to 3 homes per buyer. And I know some of you out there are thinking that's not possible in my market. I can't do that. It's never going to work. And I would challenge your thinking a little bit. I was the same way. You know, I showed a lot of houses. I had, I was sometimes more reactive than proactive on the setting of showings and those types of things. And there are some minor tweaks in your consult that can set you up so that you can have fewer showings. And what happens is with fewer showings, your clients are happier. What I have found working with the number of buyers that I have worked with is that the more homes you show them, the less confidence they have in you. They want you to be the expert, they want you to take control, and they want you to find them the house that they want. So they don't need to see 10 houses. And so when we get into, this is really the first and second week of the program, we'll go over a lot of consults, we'll go through a ton of scripts, and it is the one of the biggest game changers in my business for getting some time back and truly being able to service a high level of buyers. Getting buyer agency agreement signed. Clearly, without an agency agreement signed, you have no agreement. There's no buy-in. And so setting ourselves up as the expert, it's not any different than a listing appointment and needing to get paperwork signed. We'll talk about some scripts around that to make it a more comfortable conversation, to make it seem like it's, you know, clearly in their best interest to sign that ahead of going into showings. And then showings. This is your moneymaker, guys. I know everybody wants to get rid of it. Everyone's ready to get a showing agent. However, when you start to leverage off the showings, that's when you're going to start seeing a little bit of a reduction in what your profitability is. Now, when we can do it on a big scale and we have a massive pipeline and we have leads coming in, that's a different deal. If you just give up showings to give up showings, all that's going to do is get in your bottom to your bottom line. So what we're going to talk about is how do we set it up, and at what time is it appropriate to leverage those showings so that you can be more profitable. And then your other top activity as a buyer's agent are negotiations, being the expert in the market, understanding what the market's doing, and being able to give great advice to your clients. Mastering your leads. This is out of your, those top activities we just talked about. This is really number one and number two. Understanding what your lead generation levers are. What are you successful doing, right? What are you comfortable doing? When you have a high level of comfort, you'll have a high level of conversion, because with that high level of comfort, you're going to have better conversation. Conversation and conversion have a direct correlation of how successful you're going to be. So when we talk about lead generation levers, every team is set up differently. Are you marketing based or are you prospecting based? And what's a healthy mix of that? We're going to spend a ton of time in 5 weeks going over this. So when our team started and we were brand new, we were prospecting based and marketing enhanced, right? So now as we've grown and we've been in business together 7 years, we're about 50-50 as far as being marketing based and prospecting based. We've got a good mix of how we go after leads, and making sure that one doesn't outweigh the other, because it's protecting us from any type of a shift in the market. I know how to lead generate. My team knows how to generate for leads that are not necessarily warm leads. And that's because that's how we started. Now, if you've got to have a database, and that's where that's going to be your easier business, it's going to be your warmer leads, your higher conversion, you've got to have that too. And you need to have an understanding and a healthy appreciation of both. And then you have to create a lead follow-up system that you will use. That's the most important part of that sentence. A follow-up system that you will use. There's no use generating leads that you're not going to follow up with. And what happens, and I've been there and I've done it, you spend all of this time generating leads, and you get super excited and everything's going well, and then all of a sudden things start to drop because you've got activity, and activity breeds activity. And so what happens is that follow-up, if it's not in a system and it's not something that's easy to use, it will drop off. Buyers are one during the follow-up. So this next point goes over what Gary Keller talks about in Shift. As important as lead generating activities are, if you can't get a name, number, and ultimately an appointment, what have you really accomplished? So if we're going to spend a significant portion of our day generating leads, it's only fair to make sure that we've got the ability to convert those leads and follow up with those leads. And then making sure that as you're lead generating, as you're doing lead follow-up, as you're working on your conversion goals, that you have to be providing value to your clients each step of the way. That's our responsibility as a buyer's agent. We are the expert in the field. We're there to guide them through and to educate them. If you can be their educator and give them information and make sure that they understand the process, that they understand the market, there never really has to be a hard sell. It is a relational business. However, our value is knowledge. So even though I'm going to build a relationship with my buyers, and even though you want them to be your friends, it's more important that you're providing knowledge than for you to have the relationship that's the warm fuzzy. A lot of buyers like that, and at the same time, just like we talked about on the last slide, the more homes you show them, the less faith they have in you. They might think you're a nice person or want to go out to lunch with you, and will they remember you as a great negotiator and a great expert in the market and finding them the best house at the best price in the shortest amount of time? There's got to be a mix of both. And then making sure that we understand the message that we're giving our clients, making sure it adds value, and making sure that it's a consistent message. We're going to talk a lot about in this program understanding that your lead generation team is a complement to your production team, and your production team is a complement to your lead generation team. So we talk a lot about on our team of being one company, one language. So whether somebody gets a lead generation team member on the phone first, and then they talk to me, and then they talk to a showing agent and or an admin, we all sound the same. We all have market knowledge. We all use the same terminology. We are one company, one language. It makes it much easier to adjust scripts, whether it's a seasonal shift or something bigger. If you all are speaking the same language and you can see it as the leads are coming in, what the objections are, it helps you overcome those objections in the field. At the same time, if we start getting objections in the field, what we have found is if we can start addressing some of those on the phone when that lead first comes in, the conversion rate for both departments is dramatically increased. So when we talk about Master the Buyer Consult, this whole slide is really 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the top activities of a buyer's agent. So what we've got to do during the buyer consult, we've got to ask a ton of great questions, and we've got to learn to listen. We do an exercise on our team where when someone is talking about a conversation that they had, whether it was a buyer or a seller, anybody, you ask, when they tell a story, they'll typically tell you what they said in the conversation. And if you start challenging them and asking them to tell you what the other person said, you'll be very interested to find out that most of the time they don't know. They can't remember because they were so focused on what they were saying and or going to say that they didn't actually learn to listen. So in the consult, that's the most important thing, is learning to listen and understanding what additional information that can give you. So we've got to be able to establish motivation. So we talk, we'll get into it in the first week, but one of the more disappointing things that I hear is when someone says that buyers are liars, right? It's so frustrating to me because that's typically an agent-related problem. Either the agent hasn't really dove in to decide to figure out what the search criteria actually is, or they haven't learned to establish motivation. It's either one of two things. The agent has missed the motivation or they've missed the criteria. And the consult will reveal almost all of those things. When I talk about criteria, what I'm talking about are those non-negotiables versus the wants. What are the deal breakers? The faster you can get to those in a consult, the quicker your search is going to be. And then what is the buyer not saying? Is there somebody else that's a decision maker? How do you find out what additional information you need to find out in order to get them the home that they want? Well, typically it's going 5 deep on questions. So understanding based on the criteria why that's important to them, what it means to their family if we find this house, those types of questions. Forward pacing them to understand exactly what it is that they want in a house, and also what the expectation or the motivation is for getting that house. So set expectations, and set some more expectations. I will tell you, I win with people the clearer I am, and that can be clients, that can be team members, that can be my family. The clearer you are and the more concise you can be, everyone knows how to operate within those parameters, and it is a win-win. There's not a disappointment factor later. So setting expectations around the showings. How many homes are you going to show them? How many should you show them? How many homes are on the market? What does this look like in your market? So some of the information I'm going to give is going to be based on my biases, and I'm going to try to give you all caveats, and I'm not giving you an excuse. There's whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, we're going to go over scripts that are going to allow you to show fewer homes and have better results with those buyers. Communication. So what does communication look like with your clients? What does it look like with your team members? How does that client prefer to be communicated with? Text, email, etc. Set expectations on the market. Are they going to have to pay full price for the property, or are they going to be able to negotiate a little bit? The time for you to establish those standards is not at the time that they're making an offer. It's during the consult, so they understand what they're getting into. Contracts. Making sure that during the consult, you've set the expectation around a contract. What does it look like? How many pages is it? In your market, are you writing it up? Is an attorney writing it up? Do you sign in person? Do you utilize an e-signature program? What does that look like? Negotiations. It goes hand in hand with the market. Are there things that you can negotiate in outside of just price? Is pre-possession important? Is post-possession important? Is closing date important? Seller concessions, etc. Getting that buyer agreement signed so that you know that you're moving forward with those clients. And then establishing how that buyer is going to get pre-approved. Have they already met with a lender? Or are you going to introduce them to a lender partner that you utilize? Now, when we look at what are the activities that a great buyer's agent does, what are those top activities, what are those dollar producing activities, on the flip side of that, we've also got to look at what are those activities that slow you down? What are those non-dollar producing activities? And so I've listed some of them out. Setting showings, making the phone calls to 3 or 4 different sellers, mapping it out, printing all the documents, those types of things. Maintaining your database, providing documents. That could be utilities, it could be disclosures, filling out documents, contracts, buyer agency agreements, building out a consistent experience for the customer. At some point as a buyer's agent, you're going to be so busy and you're going to be working in the business instead of on the business, and that consistent experience will start to waver. And then obtaining those client reviews, making sure that those people that are raving fans, that we're giving them a chance to let other people know that they should work with us. This is going to be your first piece of leverage. These items are those first activities that we're going to leverage with an amazing admin person. And so when we talk about the activities that slow us down, that doesn't mean they're not important activities. What I mean is that they're not dollar producing activities, therefore they're not your top activities. And so as soon as we have the business available, this is our first piece of leverage. We're going to start building the foundation of a team within a team. And then what would happen to your business if you only focused on your top activities? There's the principle of greatest leverage. Gary Keller talks about it often, and that's making sure that you are investing your time in those results that are going to give you the highest rate of return. So typically, most people invest 20% of their time on the thing that gives them 80% of their revenue. What if we flipped it? What if we spent 80% of our time on those dollar producing activities? What would happen? We're going to teach you and learn together on how to run your business like a business. We're going to talk about time blocking in a different way than you've already heard it, because it's going to be geared towards buyers agents. We're going to talk about leveraging activities and then building in efficiencies in your business. How do we make it so that we never look at an inspection report on a weekend again? And we'll go through all of that in the program. Increase your repeat and referral business. We're going to begin to build your team within a team. And we're going to split those people out into empire protectors versus empire builders. You need both. Neither of them is a less than role. And you have to have both in order to build a team. Our final kind of layer when we get into the program is going to be talking about indicators that you're ready to hire. Typically, that's when customer service begins to slip. It starts to get a little bit shaky. People aren't getting called back as quickly as you would like to. There are text messages that are pooling up. We're going to talk about what that looks like. You're so busy that leads begin to slip, right? You're forgetting to follow up with people, or you just don't have time, only to find out then later that maybe they bought with someone else. And then when you're pushing the boundaries of your personal productivity. So in order to know when you're pushing those boundaries, what we're going to establish in this 5-week program is, what are your minimum standards for yourself? What will you not dip below? Because if we don't have a standard for you, we're not going to be able to create a standard for someone else. And then understanding, what is the current ceiling you're up against? Is it a system or is it a person? And then if we're going to learn to effectively communicate a vision for your team within the team. In order to be able to hire talented people, we've got to have a vision, and we've got to be very, very clear in how we communicate that. And then we're going to teach you how to build out the MREA model on the buy side. So again, we've got some program details. The launch is September 11th. The length is going to be 5 weeks. It's Wednesdays at 11 a.m. There's a link here to sign up for it, or you can email fasttrack@kw.com. You can also log into, if you get onto MAP's page, you can click on the link for building a team within a team. So I think we are wrapping up. Does anybody have any questions for me? If you do later, if you start thinking about something and have a question that pops up, my email is jendavis, JenDaviskw@gmail.com, and I am super happy to answer any questions that you might have. I hope you all have an awesome and productive day, and I will talk to you soon.